Hi! Alright, we've got a new angle today. My desk is way too messy to possibly sit at and do a video. So we're trying it this way today, and I think I actually might like this better, so maybe we'll do this from now on. The only thing is I'm staring into a mirror, so I can see myself in my viewfinder and in my mirror. That's kind of weird. But other than that, I like it, so let's try it out. So today I'm going to talk about the book If I Stay by Gayle Forman. I cannot talk about this book without giving massive spoilers, so spoiler alert, do not watch this if you haven't read the book or at least watched the movie. I read this as part of a book club that I'm in, an online book club, and I was like, might be good, I'm not sure, seems kind of sad. I'm reading it for the book club, don't know if I would have read it otherwise. There's a movie based on it, that looks okay. I loved it so much. Definitely the best book I've read since the start of the school year. So the best book I've read since September. I got through it in about 2 hours. It was just, I could not put it down. I loved it so much. But why do I love it so much? Let's dissect it. So first, the characters. So Mia is the main character, and she's a really good character. You can really identify with her, and you can feel all of the emotions that she's feeling. Like when she's happy, when she's in love, when she's sad. She's her emotions just jump out at you, and you can really feel what she's feeling. Well, the story is split into the past and the present. And so her main story arc in the past is kind of a do I belong kind of question, which I think is a pretty common question for teenagers to have. She kind of doesn't feel like she belongs in her family. They're all blonde and they all, do rock music, and she's brunette and she plays the cello. So she feels like she doesn't really belong with them. And then her boyfriend is a rocker guy and she feels like she doesn't really belong with him. And then at school she's kind of a weird kid who plays the cello. And so she's kind of a question of where do I belong? Who do I belong with? And then throughout her story in the past, we can kind of see her getting comfortable with herself and figuring out, this is who she's supposed to be. And some of those times that she feels that way are at the band camp or orchestra camp, when she's with Adam, closer towards after that first couple of weeks of their relationship. And then her family, she starts to feel like she really is a part of her family. Like when she plays cello with all of her family and they're playing guitar at the picnic, things like that. And you can really feel that happening. And it's a really realistic story arc because I think a lot of teenagers go through that. So any teenager can really relate to her, not just someone whose entire family died in a car crash. The next character I'm going to talk about is Adam, and Adam is Mia's boyfriend, and he seems like, in the words of John Green, a manic pixie dream guy. He's the perfect guy. He's super attractive. He's cool without trying too hard. He's in a really successful band. He's just an all around perfect guy, but he doesn't seem unrealistic, and he's down to earth. And he's a good person, and he's really good for Mia, and he helps her to figure out who she is. And when she's in the hospital, he tries everything to get to be with her. He obviously really does love her. And I think that it's a pretty realistic relationship as well. The way that they talk about each other, the way that they, act around each other is all really realistic. And then along with that, Adam has some really deep emotional parts in the book. The last scene is just all his emotions just pouring out, and it's very like I said, realistic. Every emotion in this whole book is a realistic emotion, exactly what you would expect from someone in this situation. So I think that Adam's a pretty good character, and he's not, I thought he would be unrealistic. If I were to when I describe him to you, he probably sounds like it wouldn't come across as a real person, but it does. Kim is one of my favorite characters in the book. She's not really in it as much as some of the other ones, but she's Mia's best friend, and she's a really fun character. Every scene that she's in, I love. She's funny and witty and sarcastic, and she's got a good family backstory. Her mom's like Mrs. Goldberg from the Goldbergs, really protective and stuff. But she's also got some really good deep emotional stuff in there. My favorite line from the whole book is one of Kim's. I'm gonna read that. So she's sitting with Mia at the hospital. She says, "I do have a point to all this." She continues, "There are 20 people in that waiting room right now. Some of them are related to you, some of them are not, but we're all your family." She stops now, leans over me so that the wisps of her hair tickle my face. She kisses me on the forehead. "You still have a family," she whispers. I just love that line. it fits the story so well because, you know, Mia lost her entire, like, nuclear family, but there are still people there who care about her, and I think it's true that your friends and stuff like that are the family that you choose. So I just really love that line. It's my favorite line in the whole book. And so then her family. So she has a mom and a dad and then her little brother Teddy. So her parents are like the best parents ever. They're really awesome, cool. They're also realistic. They're the kind of parents who weren't expecting to have kids right away, and they were like, you know, rockers, and her dad was in a band or whatever. But then once they started to have a family, they started to settle down, but they didn't change who they were. They just made themselves a more family style version of who they are, and they're really like good to her, and they're really supportive of her, and they're just like all around really great parents. But Teddy, her little brother, is the family member that I want to talk about the most. He's adorable. He's like 7 years old, and it's, to me, the saddest part of any movie or book is when a dog or a kid dies. Like, that is just heartbreaking. Like, the saddest scene in the book by far was the scene that we found out that Teddy was dead for sure, especially because there was a glimmer of hope in the back of my mind that maybe he would live, because he was like going to the hospital. They didn't just like put him in a bag at the car scene or the accident scene like her parents. So I was really hoping that he would survive, but he didn't, and it sucked, and it was just like the worst thing ever. It was so sad. Their relationship, Teddy and Mia, reminds me a lot of my friend. One of my best friends has a little sister who's 4, and so my friend is 18 and her little sister's 4. And that kind of relationship where there's such a big age difference that the older one kind of becomes almost a surrogate mom in a way, where like they babysit so often and they're around the kids so much that they feel for them similarly to how a mom would feel for her child. And so when Mia loses Teddy, it's even worse than losing your little brother. It's like losing your son. So the story. I loved it. Like I said, I could not put it down. Like, the minute I opened it, I was like, oh, cannot stop. I had to stop because I had things I had to do. But I read this in about 2 hours total. So, like, 2 hours of actual reading. So it did not take me very long to get through this book. It was like a page turner, so it's like a really quick read. If you want to read something, you know, you're going on a bus ride for a couple hours or a plane ride or whatever, and you want to read something, maybe not this because you'll probably end up crying, but if you don't mind crying in public, then yeah, this is a really quick read. I'm not going to say it's a fun read because it's not fun, but it's really, really good. Not all books are meant to be fun. But yeah, one of the things I really liked about this story was that it would go back and forth between the past and the present, like I said before, and I think that was really smart because they have, like, the car crash happens on, like, page 20 or so, and if we had never gone back into the past, we wouldn't have understood what the loss meant to her. I mean, we would have understood that she lost her family, and like we could think what would happen if we lost our family. But getting to know her family more in those flashbacks helps us to really, really understand where she's coming from and why it's such a hard decision to make if she should stay or if she should go. So the writing style. Gayle Forman knows what she is doing. There is everything in here I'm 100% sure was deliberate, especially with the emotional arc, because every time like a really hard scene or really emotional scene, for example, when we find out that Teddy's dead, we don't have time to grieve. Like, I wanted to cry. I did not have time because right away we were into like some flashback, and they were usually really like happy flashbacks or sometimes even a happier scene in the hospital, like when Adam breaks in to try to get her. Like, that was a really fun scene, even though it was in the more sad part of the book. But every time something really hard happened, every time something really sad happened, she would automatically go into something lighter. And I think that was really smart because it kept like your emotions it kept you from crying, so it got all pent up. And then finally at the end, in the last scene, you were just able to release it all and just cry and cry and cry. And she let that scene go on for long enough that you had time to cry. And I thought that was really smart. So overall, this book I give a 5 stars out of 5. I don't do that very often. And I'm not going to say it's a perfect book. I know that there are some people who had problems with it, like I've read reviews on Goodreads or whatever where some people didn't like it as much. But I loved it. Like I said, best book I've read this school year. I mean, I've been having a hard time getting into books lately. The last couple books I read, I didn't really like that much. So I was really happy to read this book and just be able to just get really into it. Now I'm really excited to read again. Sometimes you need that. So even though it wasn't like a really fun book, I definitely think it was a really, really good book. 5 stars, I give it a perfect score. I really can't think of any complaints personally. I know some people have them, but I don't. So I definitely recommend it, but like I said, don't read it in public unless you're willing to cry in public. Or at least don't read the last, chapter or so. And at least in my edition, It ends here, so you look like you still got this much left to go, but these are like acknowledgments and interviews and the first few chapters of the sequel, which I'm not as enthusiastic about. I think that the good thing about this book was that decision and that kind of things, and I can't imagine that the next one's going to be as good as this. I don't think there needed to be a sequel. I'm probably going to read it. I know I'm going to read it anyway, but I just don't think it'll be as good. I don't know if it'll be good at all. I think it'll be more cliche. I read like a synopsis and it's about, you know, Adam and Mia meeting like a few years in the future, and it's like, seems like a cliche, like they'll probably end up together in the end. I don't think it's going to be very good. But so yeah, my point is, at least in my edition, it looks like there's more left than there is. But once you get to the scene where Adam comes back, don't read that in public unless you're willing to cry in public. So overall, I definitely recommend it. I think everyone should read it. And I'm going to watch the movie and do a movie review as well. And a sequel. I'll do the sequel as well. So that's all I've got for today. Have a good Thanksgiving, and I'll see you guys probably next week. Hopefully next week. Bye. Hi. Okay, so lately a couple of my favorite YouTubers have been doing the zombie apocalypse tag, and Emma Blackery tagged everybody who was watching. So that included me, so I'm going to do it because I think it'd be fun.